Ever feel like, you're on this treadmill of just chasing happiness?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you could just check off a few more things on that to-do list.
Yeah.
Learn Italian, finally bake the perfect sourdough, achieve inbox zero,
Yeah.
then you'd reach peak happiness.
Right.
Well, today's deep dive might just flip the script on how we think about finding joy.
Okay.
We're going deep on this idea that maybe, just maybe, chasing happiness isn't the way to go.
Interesting.
And we've got all the good stuff from those Gulf News and Life Hack articles you said.
Sounds good. It's funny how often we treat happiness as this finish line.
Yeah.
As if it's this reward for a life well lived.
Right.
But what if we're approaching it all wrong?
Yeah. And the Gulf News article really shows that with this story
Mm-hmm.
about a woman who makes this whole checklist for finding happiness.
Okay.
Knitting, dancing, volunteering, everything.
Wow.
But instead of feeling joyful, she just feels overwhelmed. Like it's more stress.
Yeah.
I bet we can all relate to that feeling,
Huh?
that our to-do list is a don't even know where to start list.
Absolutely. And it's like this ties into a concept called Goodhart's Law.
Okay.
It's this idea that when we fixate on a goal and that's all we measure, it's no longer a good indicator of what we want.
Right.
Remember, like, when you were a kid and getting good grades was like the most important thing.
Oh, yeah.
At least to your parents.
Oh, yeah.
Learning just wasn't important anymore.
Right.
It's the same with happiness. When we're so focused on getting it, we miss out on actually feeling it.
It's like you're at a concert,
Yeah.
but instead of enjoying the music, you're checking your phone to see if you got enough likes on that video you posted.
Right.
You're so busy trying to get that validation that you miss the actual experience.
Exactly. And this isn't just some abstract idea. There's actual research on this. There was a study in the journal Emotion found that people who are always measuring their happiness, overthinking it, they end up less happy.
Really?
Yeah, it's like constantly checking if you're having fun. It just ruins it.
So focusing too much on chasing happiness can actually make us less happy.
Yeah.
Okay, so then how do we find it if we're not supposed to chase it? The Gulf News article mentions this idea that we often see happiness as a permanent state,
Right.
like happily ever after.
Right, like it's a destination that we get to.
Yes.
And then we just stay there.
Exactly.
And that's just not realistic.
Right.
Life has ups and downs, highs and lows.
Yeah.
It's like expecting the weather to be sunny and 75 degrees every single day.
Right.
It's just not going to happen.
Definitely. And I think this idea of constant happiness could be really damaging because it makes us feel like we're failing when we feel, negative emotions,
Right.
which is inevitable.
Exactly. Trying to pretend that sadness or anger or frustration don't exist, it's exhausting and honestly unsustainable. The Gulf News article tells this story about this woman whose parents always put on a brave face.
Yeah.
And it really took a toll on their relationships, their health, everything. It's like trying to hold a beach ball underwater.
Yeah.
It's so much effort, and it'll eventually pop up.
Yeah.
And probably harder than if you just let it float naturally.
So if constantly chasing happiness leads to disaster and this idea of happily ever after is a fairy tale, what's the alternative? The Gulf News article talks about this other trap. The fear of missing out.
Yeah.
FOMO.
Right.
They give this example of this young woman who feels like she has to join this football club because all her friends are doing it.
Yeah.
It's that feeling you get when you're scrolling through social media and everyone seems to be living their best life.
Right.
And you're stuck in traffic.
Yeah.
On a Monday morning.
Ah, yes. FOMO, the modern happiness killer.
Right.
And this is where we run into the hedonic treadmill.
Okay, so the hedonic treadmill. Break that down for me.
So imagine you're on a treadmill, right? You're running, you're putting in the effort, but you're not really getting anywhere.
Okay.
That's what happens when we're always chasing happiness through external things.
Okay.
That new gadget, that promotion, that perfect vacation. We work and strive. We finally get the thing we thought would make us happy. And for a minute, it does. But then we adapt.
Right.
We get used to it. And then suddenly we're back to where we started, looking for the next thing to chase.
It's like that saying, the grass is always greener.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the problem is, with this constant need for the next big thing, is that we forget to appreciate what we have.
Right.
We're so focused on what's missing that we don't see the good things. And not to mention, this constant striving can be bad.
Yeah.
Burnout, anxiety, it can even hurt our relationships.
Right.
If we're always chasing some future version of ourselves, when do we actually enjoy the people we love?
Yeah, it's like we're always on a quest for
Yeah.
something just out of reach. And it's exhausting. So how do we get off this treadmill?
Right.
The articles actually give us some advice on that.
Yeah.
Where do we even begin?
Well, they both talk about this idea of aligning our actions with our values.
Okay.
It's about knowing what truly matters to us and then making choices that reflect those values.
So instead of always wanting those external markers of success, like a nice car, a big salary,
Yeah.
it's about focusing on things that actually fulfill us.
Yes, exactly. And that's different for everyone. For some, it might be being in nature. For others, it might be spending more time with loved ones. The Life Hack article actually mentions that doing things we enjoy, like writing, painting, playing music, even just taking a walk,
Yeah.
can actually make us happier.
It's like that saying, find what you love and let it kill you. Well, maybe not kill you,
Right.
but you get the point. When we're so into something, we don't even think about time. We're not analyzing our happiness, we're just present.
You got it. And there's actually a psychological thing for this. It's called flow. That feeling when you're so engrossed in something challenging, but it's engaging.
Yeah.
Think about when you're doing something and you completely lost track of time. Writing, painting, maybe playing a sport, or even having a good conversation.
Yeah.
That's flow. And research shows that experiencing flow is a big part of our well-being.
So instead of just watching TV, it's about doing things that challenge us, that make us think, that make us feel alive. I like that.
Yes, exactly. And it doesn't have to be this big life-changing passion.
Right.
The Gulf News article talks about how even small changes can make a difference.
Like instead of being on social media for an hour before bed, maybe I read. Or instead of eating lunch at my desk, I go for a walk.
Yes, exactly. It's about doing things that nourish our souls even for a few minutes a day. And, another big takeaway from both articles is how important connection is.
Oh, yeah. I was just thinking, it's not all about, solo retreats and finding ourselves.
No, definitely not. There was a 2022 study from Current Opinion in Behavioral Sciences, and it highlighted how important our social connections are. And it's not about having a ton of friends. It's about those meaningful, supportive relationships.
So it's less about being the life of the party and more about having those deep relationships where we feel understood.
Exactly. And it's also about finding meaning outside of ourselves.
Right.
The Gulf News article talks about how being part of our community, volunteering, even just being there for a friend can bring a lot of fulfillment.
So instead of asking ourselves what will make me happy, a better question might be, how can I contribute to something bigger than myself?
Yes, you're getting it. And this isn't about being selfless. It's about knowing that happiness, real happiness, comes from living a meaningful life, connecting to something larger than ourselves, using our unique gifts, and giving ourselves compassion along the way.
Compassion. That makes me think of another point they both made. Letting go of unrealistic expectations and accepting all our emotions.
Right. So important. We're not robots. We're going to experience sadness and anger, frustration. It's part of life.
Right.
And trying to deny those emotions just makes them worse, like ignoring a fire alarm.
So instead of trying to force happiness, maybe it's about learning to accept our emotions.
Exactly. It's about realizing that even the negative emotions can teach us something. Maybe anger means a boundary's been crossed, or sadness means we need to slow down and take care of ourselves.
It's about riding the waves, not fighting against the tide.
I like that. Learning to surf the ups and downs of life. That's how we find peace. And remember, it takes practice.
Right.
Just like surfing. We're not going to be perfect every time. The important thing is to keep practicing and to be kind to ourselves.
So we've got aligning with our values, doing things we enjoy, connecting with something meaningful, being present, being kind to ourselves, and riding the waves of life. That's a lot.
It is.
But there's one more thing, right?
Yeah.
This idea of not tying happiness to achievement. It's like we're always working towards a goal thinking, when I get this, then I'll be happy.
It's like we're addicted to the destination.
Yeah, and we've all done that. If I just get that promotion, or if I meet the right person, buy that house, then I'll be happy. What if we've got it all wrong?
It's like they say money can't buy happiness, but it's so easy to think, well, maybe a little more money wouldn't hurt.
Right, like a couple more zeros in our bank account would just fix everything.
It's tempting to think that, but even if we get all the things, there's always going to be something else we want. You reach one goal and there's a new one. It's like trying to catch a rainbow. It always feels just out of reach.
So how do we break out of this?
Yeah.
How do we stop chasing the rainbow and enjoy the colors we already have?
It's about changing our mindset. What if, instead of seeing happiness as this reward, we saw it as a way of life? something we can choose in each moment. Remember flow.
Yeah.
That's like finding joy in the moment, no matter what the outcome is.
So it's about enjoying the journey, not just focusing on the destination. But we don't have to give up on our goals entirely, do
No,
we?
not at all. It's about perspective. Instead of saying, I'll be happy when I achieve this, it's more like I choose to be happy in the process, even with challenges.
So instead of waiting for happiness, we make it part of our lives now, regardless of what's going on.
Exactly. The Life Hack article, it had a really good quote about this. It said, everyone chases after happiness, not noticing that happiness is right at their heels.
Wow. It's true, though. We get so busy looking ahead that we miss the good things that are already here.
Yeah. Like that saying, stop and smell the roses. We're always rushing on our phones, scrolling and scrolling, that we forget to just appreciate things, like a good cup of coffee or a nice sunset, or just talking to someone.
This has been eye-opening. I realize I spend way too much time chasing happiness, not enough time just enjoying what I have. How about you? What's your big takeaway?
Yeah. For me, it's remembering that we don't find happiness. We create it. It's about the choices we make every day, choosing things that make us happy and that are good for us, and being kind to ourselves, because we're all a work in progress.
Yes, absolutely. So to our listeners, what if, instead of chasing happiness, you turned around and embraced it? What would that look like for you? Something to think about, and we'll see you on our next deep dive.